Hey guys, Woodcraft CZ here, and in this video we turn a piece of wood like this to this. I'm going to go through the steps I took to make this serving board out of a beautiful curly American walnut. You can see the brass handles, which are in fact draw pulls, and how I attached the feet and created the recessed holes to make the bolts flush. Unfortunately, they're silver bolts. I'm yet to find black ones, which would have been suited much better for this board. But as you can see, on the whole, it's not bad. Look at the beautiful curl. Wow. I'd have to say this is one of my personal favourites. However simple it is, the fundamentals are there, sleek, elegant, and you can be doing this for yourself. So here I'm just using my new planer thicknesser from IGM. It's got the spiral cutting head and it's making easy work of this walnut slab. So now that I have it to thickness, I'm going to take it over to the table saw to clean up the side. If you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm just using my Jessam guides to hold the piece down. If you haven't already, go check out my other video on installing this system onto my table saw. So from the table saw to the miter saw, where I clean up the sides. That black prong looking thing is the Fast Cap $10 million stick. It's pretty handy for the miter saw as it offers security pushing down the piece when you do the cut, and it keeps your hand away from the blade. There we have it, the stock's been cut to size and ready to be formed into the tray. So over to the router table where we're going to put a chamfer and a round over on it. I'm using a 22-degree chamfer bit from Freud. I prefer it over the regular 45 degrees as it's an edge you don't often see. I'll set the height to get a main depth of cut, but I'll leave a little bit to do a finishing pass just to take off any burn marks or moors. So that's the chamfer done, now time for the round over. So routing done, now I'm going to mark out where the handles sit. First I'll draw a line of how deep I want the handles going into the board. What I'll then do is offer up the handles to that line and see roughly where I want the placement. I'll then take the pencil and roughly mark the circumference of the handle studs. If you're wondering where the handles are from, they're just some drawer handles that I picked up in a local hardware store. There's usually a huge variety, so there's plenty to choose from. So placement's done. Now I'll take a measurement of the distance from each stud. This will help me find centre. Now I'm just going to mark where I want to drill, using the measurement I just took and eyeballing the reference marks. I'll now take these measurements from the edges and replicate them on the other side. Okay, so now that that's done, time to take it over to the drill press, where I'm going to drill the fine holes for the handle screws and then drill a bigger hole on top of the fine hole to create a recess so the screw head sits flush on the board. If you don't have a drill press, you can use a drill guide, or if you've got a steady hand, try your chances going freehand. If you happen to be on the market for a drill guide, check out the video I have on the Axminster one. So just changing drill bits over for the recess hole. And there you have it, holes on holes. Okay, so time now to mark out where I'm going to put the little feet that go on the bottom of the board. I'm using the same measurement on all sides of the board. If you're wondering what the blue painter's tape is, that's just to give me a guide of how deep to drill the holes. Okay, so the holes are done, but before I screw in the feet, I'm going to address a few imperfections in the board, such as tiny little knots and some cracks. For this, I'm going to use Starbond black CA glue and an accelerator to speed up the curing process. I'm using the black stuff simply for aesthetic reasons, and just using my trusty chisel to remove the excess glue. Same again for the other side. And then once that's done, I'm going to sand it down and attach the feet. When sanding, I normally go from 120, 240 to 360. When sanding the edges, I normally use these Bosch block sanding pads. They come in a coarse, which is marked by the orange colour, and a fine, which is marked by the green colour. They just really help to hit the contours well. Okay, so now time to mix up some trusted Rubio Monocoat 2C. The 2C stands for two components. You have the accelerator, which is what I'm pouring now, and then the actual oil, which is what I'm pouring now. A quick little mix with the tongue depressor. A side note, tongue depressors are great to have in a shop. There's so many applications for them, from stirring, applying, using as a splint, the list goes on. Definitely a worthwhile shop must have. So once I've got the most out of the tongue depressor, I'll use a little Scotch-Brite pad to just finish off application, especially around the corners and the edges. Okay, so I take off any excess with some kitchen towel, and then once the excess is removed, I'll use a terry towel, or just a cotton towel, a white one generally, so it has no colorant, and I'll rub it in and just make sure that it's fully saturated into the wood. Okay, so now the bolts go in. Preferentially, I would have loved to have some black bolts, but I didn't. They're silver. I may figure something out, but at the moment I've only got silver bolts. I might use a Sharpie later on, or a permanent marker, just to fill them in black sometime in the future. Okay, so just laying out the feet, and time to now screw them in. Sometimes it's handy if you haven't got pre-drilled holes, or even if you're doing a slightly tight, you can just dip the tips of the screws into some machine wax, and it'll help glide and guide the screw into the wood without breaking the heads, because these tiny screws are so fragile, the heads normally snap off or get threaded by the screw head. Okay, so time to just clean it off, and let's have a look at what we got. So guys, that brings us to the end of our video. I hope you've taken something away from it and enjoyed the video. If you have, I'd always appreciate you hitting that like button. And if you like the other videos that I have, please consider subscribing. The takeaways from this, for me, are no matter how simple it is, if it's executed well, I think it can be very effective. It's essentially one piece of wood, two hardware accessories being the handles, in a very simple format. And this would make a great gift for any of your friends or loved ones this coming holidays. So until the next video, happy woodworking. Take it easy, guys.